let's go right ahead and talk about Cade Cunningham getting his max extension. Again, just a reminder for you guys that's on the audio section, this is pre-recorded at, let's say, 3 o'clock in the morning, and therefore I will not have any sort of news on basketball like towards the middle of the day because I'm not going to be doing my live segment. So if there's anything that I missed, I will bring it up again on Thursday because, for where I'm at today is Wednesday. And then on Thursday, that's where I'll resume doing my live segments so that way I can bring all of you guys the basketball news right then and there. So without further ado, let's go right ahead and go into the first segment. Excuse me. It's still pretty late. Second segment, talking up. Yep, there goes the internet, just doing that thing with the image again. Hold on 1 second while I try to fix that real quick. Hold on, let me just see. But aside from that, I'm just going to go ahead and continue talking while I'm fixing this in the background. And hopefully, the image actually loads up for you guys so that way you're able to see it. I'm going to try it again. There we go. That's what I wanted to show. I don't know why it wasn't popping up at first. And you saw Kobe Bryant over there on like the top left over on the screen. For those of you guys on the audio section, you guys aren't going to see that. But Cade Cunningham, he landed his max extension, and it is a 5-year, $224 million maximum rookie extension. And this is somewhat similar to the amount of money that Franz Wagner is making for the Orlando Magic. As you guys remember from previously, he was making $224 million on his max rookie contract as well. But aside from the difference between Franz Wagner and Cade Cunningham's contract, in my opinion, is that, the Pistons, they desperately need him as a player. Like, they desperately need him in order to be relevant. And that's obviously one of the biggest difference makers in why this contract isn't as bad as Franz Wagner's contract, because I don't think the Orlando Magic would be sorry if they lose out on Franz Wagner. I don't think that's really the case, but it's different for the Detroit Pistons. Like, the Pistons, they really, really need Cade Cunningham and his scoring. Now, the deal could become worth up to $269 million, according to Representatives Jeff Schwartz and James Dunleavy of Excel Basketball. So he was the number 1 overall pick in 2021, and he averaged 22.7 points, 7 assists, along with 4 rebounds in 62 games with the Detroit Pistons. And he was a starter last year, so he started in all of those games. Now, his career averages are 20 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, 1 steal in 138 games where he all started. And if you guys remember from the previous segment, I mentioned how Franz Wagner wasn't averaging as many, he wasn't a 20-point per game scorer. This is different. Cade Cunningham is a 20-point per game scorer, and over the season, averaging 22 points per game. Like I said, if you're going to be making that money, you should at least be able to put up 21, and this is what Cade Cunningham does. And there are several nights where he puts up a lot more than 21 points. He's had several 30-point games, 40-point games that have all ended in losses, unfortunately, due to the Pistons just not being a good team overall. And really, that's like the biggest problem, one of the big problems with Cade Cunningham's contract. It's now that he's stuck with the Detroit Pistons, who aren't a winning franchise, at least as of right now and as of recently. Let's just face it. The Detroit Pistons are awful. They broke the record for having the most consecutive losses in an entire regular season, and the only bright spot to the Pistons is honestly Cade Cunningham. I didn't mention his efficiency either. He shot 44% from the field, 35% from 3, all of which are, career highs at this point, and he completely bounced back from last year where he was converting 27% of his threes to now this year where he's converting 35% of his threes. He also was able to increase his 2-point efficiency, his shots from within inside the arc, to 48%, having an effective field goal of 50%. Now, this is all very, very good for the Pistons, right? This is fantastic. Now, The only real problem for the Pistons is that the rest of the team can't really follow suit. And that's one of the arguments for Cade Cunningham not really being as good as some people think. Like, there's the saying in basketball where it's decent player, bad team. And essentially what that means is that a lot of these players, they could be great on an awful team, but the second that they're put on a great team and a winning team, their performances might hinder because of several factors. One, their usage rate might not be that high. Two, the system isn't really beneficial for them. Three, I'm trying to think, like, what was the third option? I have them all in my head and I just completely forgot. The third option is that the pressure could be a little bit much because there's not really much expectation coming in from the Pistons. But now that if he was to be on a good team, there's going to be expectations for the team to win, and that pressure could sort of make or break one of these kinds of players. It's a similar instance with, Jeremy Grant. Like, in my opinion, I think Jeremy Grant is a solid player, but when he's on a bad team, he's a great, phenomenal player because his usage rate is just so high, and there's like barely any pressure on him or the team to be able to perform. So that's really like where the debate on Cade Cunningham is. Is he really a good basketball player worthy of a max contract, or is he just putting up good stats on a bad team? Now, we still have to see that. We have to see just how the Pistons are able to develop and rebuild their team to make it a contending team. But in a conference like the Eastern Conference, where it's so top-heavy, it's going to be very difficult, in my opinion. I think that I personally think that this contract is well-deserved, and the Pistons, they needed to have some sort of bright spot on their team. And they needed to sort of ensure that Cade Cunningham was going to stay on the Pistons. And the only way in doing so is offering him the most amount of money you possibly can. And so this was a must for the Detroit Pistons. It might not be a good contract, like if you think that Cade Cunningham isn't that kind of player that can play really well on a good team. But the Pistons desperately needed some sort of bright spot, some player to build around, to actually see if he is that kind of player that can lead a good team, which I genuinely think he is. Like, I mean, again, the argument is that he puts up a lot of garbage time stats, therefore, like, the stats don't really mean as much since the team is usually down by a lot of points. But again, like, you're really fighting against the current here when you're playing with the Detroit Pistons, because you're almost guaranteed to lose in every single game. They've been the worst team in the NBA for 2 years right now, and it's unfortunate for them that they keep getting the number 5 pick in the NBA draft. Like, a lot of Pistons fans were furious last year when they missed out on Victor Wembanyama because, like, again, they had the worst record the previous year, aside from, this coming year. Well, not this coming year, I meant. They had, let me use dates, I might as well. They had the worst record in 2023, and they also ended up having the worst record in 2024. Now, the argument for last year could have been that they didn't have Cade Cunningham playing in the 2023 season, but, it's been proven that that really doesn't matter as the Pistons just keep on losing and losing and losing and losing. And it's really tragic for the Pistons. But aside from that, we are out of time with the second segment, and I am done talking about the Pistons because I just don't like the Pistons. So we're going to go ahead and go into the third segment where I talk about a Brandon Ingram trade proposal that could send him to Chicago. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.